Welcome back, fellow Illumineers, to be our guest. Alright, we're in the last one. It's the home stretch. We're going to clump all of the 6+ ink cost cards together in our Reign of Jafar limited set review. That's for draft or sealed. If you're playing in a pre-release event this weekend, we've got you covered. Now, we've done 5 of these already, so if you haven't checked those out, make sure you check them out first, because a lot of what I've got to say is probably going to be within the context of what I've already said leading up to this point. If you don't have the time for that, quite alright. I'm also going to be getting out a quick recap video, a quick hits draft video of all the top hits at each ink cost. Now, you might ask, why am I clumping 6+ costs together? Because frankly, you shouldn't have too many of any of these in your limited deck. When we talk about an ink curve, we want to talk about, okay, I want to be able to consistently put out, maybe not a 1-drop, not everyone's looking to play a lot of 1-drops, but at the very least 2 into 3 into 4 into 5, and maybe into 6. And to get that consistency, you've got to have majority 3 and 4 drops, a decent amount of 2 and 5 drops, and a sprinkling of 1 and 6+. So as a result, in most of my limited decks, especially draft, a little less so for sealed. Sealed is usually a little bit slower. You can go a little bit bigger, but don't get too greedy, or someone will rush you. But usually in my limited decks, I'm not looking to have more than 1 to 4 6+ drops. 2 and 3 is kind of my comfort zone, and I almost always want them to be inkable. It would have to be a truly busted card for me to want an uninkable of 6+. Why is that? Well, especially if you're curving out from 1, you're going to naturally get to 5 ink, but not necessarily get to 6. If you count it out, I'm not going to do it here, but if you do the math, if you're inking a card and playing a card every turn, you're going to naturally get to 5 ink, not necessarily to 6, which is to say on the play, you will not get to 6. On the draw, you can naturally get to 6 going that way, but that's only half the time then, right? And you're definitely not going to naturally get to 7 unless you've got cards that are ramping you additionally, or you've got cards that are drawing you cards. Getting to 7 can be really tough. So I want my 6+ cost to be inkable. I have played some uninkable larger drops before, but they've got to be really busted cards to take care of that. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Let's explain our ranking systems, and for that, we've got Past Heath again. He's working hard. Go ahead, Past Heath. And we're back. All right. Let's start it off with Chief Bogo, Commanding Officer. He's an inkable of 5/5, 1 lore for 6. During an opponent's turn, whenever one of your characters with Bodyguard is banished, you may reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a character card with cost 5 or less, you may play that character for free, otherwise put it on the top of your deck. Now, if you are lucky enough to have 4, 5, 6 bodyguards in your deck, Chief Bogo could do some work. But I draft bodyguards aggressively, and still I'm probably only getting 1, 2, 3 in my deck. So as a result, Chief Bogo is really kind of a D, because he only quests for 1 lore, he costs 6. Feel free to bump him up a little bit if you've got a decent amount of bodyguards, but even with 3, 4, 5 bodyguards, you're not going to consistently have one out when Chief Bogo is out at a time where the ability is going to activate. Now, if you activate that ability, fantastic, because almost all of your deck is free, and so, you get a character card for free. Yeah, it's probably going to inevitably be your 2-drop, but still. You get a free character. That's fantastic. But you're just not very likely to trigger it. So he's a D. Bruno Madrigal. 7 cost, uninkable, 3/7, 2 lore. Whenever this character sings a song, you may draw a card for each character you have in play. There is a Bruno that I recommended that you draft at least as a playable option. But still, the shift is very, very unlikely. And at 7 cost, uninkable is a huge anchor. It is very unlikely you're going to be able to play this card. It's going to be dead in your hand so many times. Now, if you can trigger that ability, that is glorious, right? Maybe drawing 2, 3 cards. But there's not many songs that you want to play. There's actually a few in this particular ink costs, or set of ink costs. So, fair enough. But still, there's just not nearly enough that you're likely to ever get him out, let alone get him out at a point where you've got a song to sing and can trigger this. So, with that in mind, he is sadly an F. And for the record, I've been asking for this card since the first set. So it was like, for me, the Floodborns were like what the characters were aspiring to be if they were writing their own story. And so for me, I can't remember the title I gave him, but Bruno as like an accomplished singer was my vision for and my ask for a Bruno Floodborn card. So that means nothing for your limited set review, but it means something to me. Tramp, Dapper Rascal, 6-cost inkable, 2/8, 2 lore. He's got shift 4. I think there's only the 3-cost Tramp in this set, if I recall correctly, which isn't very good, so you're probably never going to shift him. But that's okay, because just on his own, during an opponent's turn, whenever one of your characters is banished, you may draw a card. Amazing! Now, this necessitates you being in a position where your opponent needs to challenge you, right? We talk about who is the quester, who is being aggressively questing, able to, in a position to, and who has to respond to them. Which player has to be challenging to keep the other opponent at bay. That position can shift over the game. A lot of people think, hey, if I'm on the draw, I'm constantly behind, I'm constantly not the quester. That's not the case. You can turn the tables, right? But Tramp is very much reliant on who is the quester, right? If you are in a position where you have to be challenging your opponent, a 6-cost 2/8 2 lore is not very good. It's solid, but not very good. But if you're in a position where you're forcing your opponent to challenge, because this doesn't have to be exerted, you play it, you pass it back to your opponent, and if they're challenging any of your characters, presumably to banish them, you're drawing cards. When this is banished on your opponent's turn, you're drawing cards. So this is, I equate this similar to Bagheera from the last set, which is Bagheera wasn't very good if you weren't the quester. If you needed to challenge a 4/3 2 lore for 5, Bodyguard doesn't matter if you're the one that needs to be challenging, right? So Bagheera wasn't very good when you were behind. Tramp is not very good when you're behind. When you're ahead, Tramp is a game breaker. Now, some might call that a win more card, but for me, this is like the nail in the coffin. If you're already ahead, this is going to prevent your opponent from ever catching up. So as a result, I've got Tramp in the like A-, B+ territory, which is he's an A+ when you're ahead, and he's probably like a C+ when you're behind. So somewhere in this territory, I'll put him here for now, but I'm very happy to bump him up if we've got a lot of Bs. Wreck-It Ralph, Big Lug, 7-cost uninkable, 7/5 1 lore with shift 5. Again, the shift target is not very good in this set. It's playable, but not very good. When you play this character, whenever he quests, you may return a racer card with cost 6 or less from your discard to your hand. So he can't get himself back if you've got 2 of them. If you do, gain 1 lore. Again, not very many good racers in this set. And at 7-cost uninkable, it would have to be amazing for this to be relevant. And it's not. So it's an F. And I would say less than Bruno. Okay. Perdita. All the enchanteds. Determined Mother, 6-cost inkable, 4/6 2 lore, shift 4. Again, not very relevant. When you play this character, you may put all puppy character cards from your discard into your inkwell face down and exerted. By the time you get her out, you've got all the ink that you need in this game. So that's not relevant, and as I've mentioned before, there's a few decent puppy characters in this set, but one of them also puts a character card from your discard into your inkwell, so you may have already pilfered a puppy out of there. You shouldn't be going puppy-themed. Don't. That is not the way to win. But she quests for 2, so she's a D+. I would put her above Bogo because, again, Bogo, you're just so unlikely to trigger him. Pluto, Tried and True, 6-cost inkable, 2/7 2 lore. While this character has no damage, he gets +2 strength and gains support. So, at first, a 6-cost inkable 4/7 2 lore support is quite good. He does get diminishing, right? But, I mean, you've got some heal. I'm not usually big on heal, and there's not a ton of it in this set. You've got some heal, so it's possible that you can get him back to that again. But even if I just quest for 2, deal 4 damage, or support something for 4, deal 4 damage to a character when it swings in, so it's inevitably going to eat a 1-drop or a 2-drop or a 3-drop if they're desperate. And then at that point, probably still do some damage to the bigger character that's going to take him out. That's pretty solid. Now that's at 6. So it's not great. I've got it somewhere around probably like a B-, C+, somewhere in that range. So I'll put it, I think, here for now, and be ready to bump it up if needs be. Calhoun, 6 cost, Inkable, 4/5, 2 lore, Bodyguard. When this character is banished, gain 1 lore. So you're effectively paying 1 more than Monterey Jack to gain 1 lore when it's banished. For me, that is not worth it. Paying 1 ink for lore isn't bad, but sometimes getting from 5 to 6 ink can be a big undertaking. You got to ink something you really don't want to. Or you're behind on the timing, right? The timing for a 5-drop Bodyguard may be perfect once you get around to turn 6 or your 6th ink, which may not be till turn 7 or 8. Then all of a sudden, it's not as effective, not as impactful. So I think this is worse, and probably considerably worse than Monterey Jack. Not, like 2 points down, like 2 letter grades down or anything. Not saying it goes from an A- to like a C- or anything like that. But I'd say, again, B+, C-. Where do I like it relative to Pluto? I think I like Pluto more. So I think I'm already going to bump Pluto up, because I anticipate we're going to have more C's in here. Alma Madrigal, 6 cost, Inkable, 5/5, 2 lore. Once during your turn, whenever one of your or more of your characters sing a song, you may ready those characters. So she benefits a lot from the sing together mechanic, which we're going to see in a little bit. And I think you're going to draft most of them, but there's still only, I think 3 that are relevant? Maybe, 3-ish that are relevant. And obviously the other songs, there is other songs, but they're not super relevant. I think there's going to be enough songs that you're probably going to have 1 to 3 in your deck. So she's going to trigger a very limited amount of times. So for me, based on her sizing, she's still a D+, maybe into C- territory. But obviously, if you get a significant amount of songs, it's like, you don't want a significant amount of songs, though, because then you're diluting your deck of characters that can sing the song. So I probably wouldn't want more than like 3 or 4 songs in my deck. So she's probably just the best of D+ or the worst of C-, somewhere in that range. Donald Duck, Coin Collector, 8 cost, Inkable, 4/8, 2 lore. If you've got the Nephew's Piggy Bank, which you definitely shouldn't have, this costs 2 less. And when you play this character, your other characters gain exert to draw a card this turn. I mean, that ability is great if you get this off, but you should never be playing the Nephew's Piggy Bank, which means this will cost 8, which means you're never getting it out, which means it's a D+, because maybe you've got enough card draw that you eventually are at 6 ink, you've got a card that you can ink and play, and I don't know. There's situations where maybe you can put this out, but it's probably like, maybe not even D+. It's like a D, D-, because you're just never going to get it out. All right. It means no worries. Now, this is a 9 cost uninkable, which you may say, well, Heath, you told me those are unplayable. Well, this one happens to have Sing Together. It is an action song. Sing Together 9. Return up to 3 character cards from your discard to your hand. You pay 2 less for the next character you play this turn. So, we're going to see one that allows you to draw cards equal to the number of characters that sing it. On average, you're probably not going to sing with more than 3. So this is equivalent in terms of number of cards to, I'll just say it now, Fantastical and Magical. I keep trying to bungle Madrigal and Magical. So, same cost, and probably drawing the same amount of cards. However, It Means No Worries is both better and worse. It is worse in that it necessitates you having 3 character cards in your discard to get in the first place. But it could be better in that knowing that I'm going to get my 3 best characters out of my discard versus 3 random cards, I would prefer that. So later in the game, this is better. Earlier in the game, it is almost undoubtedly worse. Maybe you don't even have 3 character cards, or 2 of them are a 1-drop and a 2-drop, right? But also, this one reduces the cost of the next character you play. So you can play that character for free. Well, not for free, sorry, for cheaper. And when you're singing this, you're not using your ink. It means that potentially you could play out 2 characters in that turn, right? So, it means no worries. Definitely good in the late game. I think on the whole, it's probably going to play out worse than Fantastical and Magical. But there's situations where it's going to be so much better. So, what does that equate to? I mean, having a 9-cost uninkable in your hand is not pleasant. If you can't get in a situation where you can sing this and not get destroyed on the backswing with your opponent challenging a bunch of weak characters, then you're going to be good off. But like, you could be in a situation where you could sing this, but it would be detrimental to your board state. Your opponent's got a bunch of favorable challenges. You can tell here that I'm kind of convincing myself off of it. I had it at C+. Why does it have to be uninkable? Because it's good, that's why. I still think I'm greedy. What can I say? I try to give ratings on here that are right for the average viewer. So, which is to say, I'm probably going to recommend you don't be as greedy as I might be normally, because it's harder to pull that off and just not get stuck. Right? I don't want you to get stuck with this and Fantastical and Magical in your hand, and like, I would probably only have 1 of these in my deck. Like, 1 of the 9-cost uninkable Sing Together songs. Anything more than that, you're just asking for trouble. But the first one, I'm going to rate this as the first one, and the second one might be as low as an F. But the first one's a C+ for me. And I'm going to put it ahead of Calhoun. I'm just not that high on Calhoun. This might even be a C for me. And then when we get to Fantastical and Magical, I'll have to put myself on the spot of which I rate higher. Alright, Hades, Ruthless Tyrant, 7-cost uninkable, 3/6/2 lore. When you play this character, and whenever a quest, you may deal 2 damage to another chosen character of yours to draw 2 cards. Unless you have ramp in your deck, and I would say a significant amount of it, like 4 or 5, and you probably shouldn't. If you have 4 to 5 ramp in your deck, you're probably making your deck worse. Because, like, the ability is sick. Everyone's going to read this and be like, oh my gosh, but I can't stress this enough. 7-cost uninkable can be almost impossible to get out. So I think that he is a very, very tempting F, but he is an F nonetheless. And if you get in the comments and say, oh, I've got a much higher, I don't blame you. It's very powerful when you can get that out. I'm just worried if you're ever going to get that out. Abu, Illusionary Pachyderm, 6-cost inkable, 3/7/1 lore with Vanish. When this character quests, you gain lore equal to the lore of chosen opposing character. So, on rate, you're at least going to get 2 lore out of this when you quest. Is that worth a 6-cost inkable 3/7 Vanish? 6-cost inkable 3/7/2 lore? Let's say that I think there's going to be enough times where you're going to get 3 on this. 1 for its own questing and 2 for your opponents. So if we say this was a 6-cost inkable 3/7/3 lore with Vanish, do we like that? Yes, there's going to be situations where it might be more, but let's say 3 is not necessarily even the average, but fair to say you'll get that enough. Vanish on a 6-drop is tough, because obviously the more impactful the character gets, the more risk that your opponent's going to do something about it. They're not likely to target your 1-drop with an action. They're not likely going to have many actions that do choose your characters. So it's unlikely that Vanish is ever going to get triggered, but there's definitely a risk there. I think on the whole, I've got this at like a C. I think it can be very good, but there's definitely a lot of risk involved, and I don't think it's nearly as good as, say, the Sultan to warrant that risk. Now, the Sultan was uninkable, so that's something to kind of keep in mind. But I think I would rather Calhoun than Abu. Monstro, 8-cost inkable, 6/8/2 lore with Rush. Notably the only character that is triggered by Jiminy Cricket, for what it's worth. Rules of villainy. Choose and discard a card. Ready this character. He can't quest for the rest of this turn. So, if you ever manage to get Monstro out, obviously he's a huge game, right? He's going to do a lot of damage, maybe even a one-sided. Be prepared. But again, 8 cost uninkable is almost impossible to get out. Like, it's just not happening. Like, a wish and a prayer and a dream, sure, but he's still a D+. Cusco, 7 cost inkable, or 5/5/2 lore, Cusco Impulsive Llama to be precise. He's got Shift 4, which you shouldn't do because this card is terrible. When you play this character, each opponent chooses one of their characters and puts it to the bottom of their deck. Then each opponent may draw a card. So they get to choose their worst character to trade for a card. And for that, you're paying 7 for a 5/5/2 lore. No, this is an F, inkable F. And I'm going to put it at the bottom because I would rather you put an uninkable good card in your deck than a card that is actively working against you. Yzma, On Edge. 6 cost uninkable, 3/6/2 lore. When you play this character, if you have a card named Pull the Lever in your discard, you may search for the wrong lever. Put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. You're not very likely at all to have both of those, since wrong lever, I believe, is a rare. And you have Pull the Lever in your discard to make that work. And still I'm paying 6 cost uninkable, 3/6/2 lore for that. That is not nearly good enough. This is an F. And I would put this ahead of Wreck-It Ralph, but under the other two. Okay. Mana Mim, 6 cost uninkable, 6/5/1 lore, Shift 2, for what that's worth. When you play this character, banish her or return another chosen character of yours to your hand. That ability is not nearly as impactful in Limited as it is in Constructed. And even then, all you're getting is a 6/5/1 lore for that. And it's uninkable? No, this is an F for me. This is not usable at all. Where do I even have it? There, I guess? Yeah, don't play that. On a Magical Mission, 6 cost inkable, 3/6/2 lore, Shift 4, not really likely. Support? Okay. When this character quests, if you have a character named Elsa in play, you may draw a card. There's only one Elsa in this set, and I believe she's a rare, so that's not going to happen. So it's a 6 cost, 3/6/2 lore support. At 5, we've got a 3/5/2 lore support. So no. So she's a D+, and well, maybe she's a C-. I think nah, she's a D+. She's at least a usable D+, though. She's not like Monstro, where it's just you're dreaming of getting her out. She's at least usable, so. Fantastical and Magical, here we are. Sing together 9. For each character that sang the song, draw a card and gain 1 lore. So it's probably going to be 3. Keep in mind you can overpay, quote unquote. You don't see me doing my air quotes here, but you can overpay for this, which you can quest with 20 ink worth of characters if you got them. So probably you're going to quest with as many as you've got. Depends on your board state, right? If you got to maybe do a challenge this turn, maybe you don't quest with everything you got, but chances are you're going to quest with everything you got. But on average, I'd say you're going to be drawing 3. Again, I tend to play for the early and mid game much more than the late game. So I think I like this over It Means No Worries, but I think it depends very much on the deck that you're trying to build. Right? If you're going more for the late game, probably It Means No Worries. If you're going for the early game, probably Fantastical and Magical. Alright, Basil, Undercover Detective, 7 cost, inkable, 5/4/2 lore. When you play this character, you may return chosen character to their player's hand. Huge. When this character quests, chosen opponent discards a card at random. Which you'd think by the time you get a 7 cost out isn't going to be effective, but you bounce a character back to their hand, and then on their next turn they draw. You're effectively, by having that secondary ability, you're likely not going to make them discard, unless you've got another bounce effect. But you're going to force them to ink one of those two, probably. Because there's a good chance you're going to bounce their highest cost character. There's a good chance that they're not going to be able to play both of the characters that they've got in their hand. So unless they both happen to be uninkable, then you might get them to discard one. But at the very least, you're going to force them to ink one of them. Which, at that point in the game, is almost certainly card advantage. Because they probably don't want to ink at that point. But they're like, well, I'm going to lose it anyway. Might as well ink. Right? Okay, so let's ignore that for a moment, because that's value, but it's kind of uncertain value. Let's just go on the surface value. 7 cost inkable, 5/4/2 lore, bounce a character. I would take that. If I knew I could get to 7, I'd be very happy with that. I loved Genie on the Job. 6 cost uninkable, 3/4/2 lore, evasive, bounce a character. Loved it. Limited bomb for me. That's something I'm willing to try and get to 6 ink for at an uninkable. Like, that's worth it. But getting to 7, again, is going to be really tough. I think I still want to include him in the deck, like, consistently, which is to say he's in the C territory. He's not a D, where it's like, okay, I'll include him if I have to. I think I want to actively include him. I just anticipate I'm going to be inking him most of the time. So I think I've got him around C. Not even as low as C-. I think I've got him around C. And I think... And this is where, you know... Again, the difference between 6 and 5, you might be like, oh, he's so much better than Abu. The difference between 6 and 5 ink is a whole card, which in Limited is a big deal. Which is to say I have to ink another one of my precious, precious cards to get to 7. I think I'm going to leave him behind Abu. I don't know. He is very strong. Okay. Another 7-cost inkable, Fred Giant Size, 5/6/3 lore with Shift 5. If I recall correctly, the other Fred is so probably not going to shift onto him. I just don't remember him as being a quintessential shift target. Might be that he was just a larger character, so you just don't want to shift. Regardless, I've said this before. I haven't said this in this set yet. Do not shift lightly, right? Like, shifting a character puts you down a card, so you've got to get really good value out of that. Now, it so happens that Fred gets you a card when you quest, so being able to quest 1 turn early, and with 3 lore, probably worth that card, but not just inherently. Don't just be like, oh, I can shift, so I will, right? Consider the fact that you're going down a card when you shift. Get really good value out of that shift to justify it, right? But it means that if I can shift it, again, shifting is very, very unlikely. You're not likely to have more than one of the other Freds, which means that you're not likely to get this out. Now I'm questioning myself. There is another Fred in this set, right? Pretty sure I remember seeing another Fred in this set. He's double checking. Yes, there is. There's a 3-cost Fred in this set. Oh yeah, it's the one that banishes an item. So it's like a D. So you shouldn't be playing that. But you know what? If I got this Fred, I would probably put one of the little Freds in my deck. It was meh. I was right in the first place. So, why do I like this Fred? And I even like it at 7-drop. Again, to the same degree as Basil, maybe a little bit more. Because it's better than Basil. But same rules apply here, which is you're almost never going to get this out. But if you can, even just having like 2 other Floodborn characters in your deck, I'd say 1, but you could draw the 1 and have the 1 before you're ever able to get Fred out. So a couple will allow it so that you'll almost certainly draw 1, right? So when this character quests, reveal cards from the top of your deck until you reveal a Floodborn character card. Put that card into your hand and shuffle the rest of your deck. So it's not reveal the top 5, top 10. It's you. If you have a Floodborn character card in your deck, you will get it. And then you shuffle the rest of the cards in, so you're not even worried about milling yourself, right? So all these things combined, Fred is not just guaranteed to draw a card if you've got a Floodborn left in your deck. It's guaranteed to probably draw a pretty good card, because the Floodborns are all bigger characters. Great, right? And it's a 5/6/3 lore. Again, it's just that you're not likely to actually ever get it out. So I've got this at like a C, C+. I think I'm greedy enough to put it above Calhoun, but not by much. You're just not likely to get it out. Let's be frank. And also, I hope this goes without saying, it necessitates you having at least 2 or 3 good Floodborn in your deck. Again, don't draft bad cards to make another card good. Raya, Infiltration Expert. 6-cost inkable, 5/5/2 lore. Whenever this character quests, you may pay 2 to ready another chosen character. Again, readying without any contingencies. It can quest again, or it can challenge. Or sing, for what it's worth. But especially quest. Right? You quest with this. You quest with something else. A 2-lore character. You quest with this, pay 2, ready that other 2-lore character, quest again. Right? Especially if you got a 3-lore character on board. My goodness. So... And by the way, this works really well with Bolt, for what it's worth, the 3-cost Bolt. If you put this out before Bolt, and then play Bolt, quest with this, pay 2 to ready Bolt. That's good game. So, yeah, really, really strong. Not like super busted, right? It necessitates you having another character that you want to pay 2 to ready, but there's a good chance you're going to have a character that you're happy to pay 2 to ready, even if it's just to quest one more time, right? And you can do that repeatedly, and on a pretty solid body, 1 costs more than the vanilla stat line. That equates to a pretty good value. So where do I have Raya at? I think somewhere around B+. So the thing about Raya that maybe should put her above Tramp is that she's good both behind and ahead. She's good ahead because she allows you to quest more. She's good behind because she allows you to challenge more. Tramp is so very good, though. I wouldn't blame you for putting either one. I think I'm going to have Tramp first because I feel confident that I can put myself even on the play in a good board state so that he will be good. But for the average player, you might want to prioritize Raya. And that... Oh, that sounded like a lot of ego in there. This is not to diminish your play. This is just to say if you're not comfortable with limited a lot yet, Raya is probably going to reward you more often than Tramp does. Alright, Alice, clumsy as can be. 6 cost, inkable, 2/6, 2 lore with shift 3 for what it's worth. Whenever this character quests, put 1 damage counter on each other character. Yours as well. So you got to be very cautious about this, but if your opponent's kind of going wider and has more small characters than yours, then that can be really powerful. But I think it's just clunky, so probably like mid-D. If you see a board state where you're like, oh, this is going to really benefit me, put her out. But most of the time, she's probably going to be just as detrimental to you as your opponent, so in here somewhere... Sure, we'll throw her there. Alright. Maui! It's Maui time! 6 cost, inkable, 4/4, 3 lore. When this character is banished, choose one. Put 2 damage counters on all opposing characters, bypasses resist, or banish all opposing items or banish all opposing locations. Obviously, you're going to put 2 damage on all opposing characters. That is fantastic, right? The fact that it can be on your turn. Right? So obviously you don't want to be running your 4/4/3 lore into an opposing character in a challenge. But quite frankly, there's going to be plenty of times where running a 4/4 in plus grab your sword is going to be a huge game. So if that's my worst case scenario, my best case scenario is I get to quest for 3 a couple times before my opponent's forced to get rid of Maui and then suffers 2 damage on all their characters. Worst case scenario is I have to run my 4/4 into their 4/4 or their 6/6, right? And then 2 damage on all their characters. If that's worst case scenario, that's a good place to be. Grab Your Sword was fantastic in Limited. Now it was a song, so that helped. This isn't. You gotta pay the 6th cost for it, but it's still very, very good. I've got this as an easy A. Stopped in its tracks. 8 cost, inkable, action song, sing together. Return up to 2 chosen characters with 3 strength or less, each to their player's hand. So this can be yours, but you probably shouldn't bounce yours, so you got a really good reason to do so. But this can be pretty good tempo, because a lot of characters are 3 strength or less, right? Even in our 6+ drops here, we got 1.5. Pluto will often be 4 strength when you want to bounce him. Once you've dealt damage to him, you probably don't want to bounce him. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So even 7 in our 6+, and we still got some to go. Yeah, there's 8 down here, 9. So 9 of the 6+ drops are still 3 strength or less. There's a lot of 3 strength or less in this set, which means you're probably going to be able to bounce even 2 relatively consequential characters. It's not just going to be 2 and 3 drops. There's going to be some 4 and 5 and 6+ drops that are 3 strength or less. Now, singing 8 is substantial. You're probably still going to have to sing with 3 characters, right? So it's not always going to be very good, but there's going to be times where it is, and the fact that it's inkable is huge. If this was uninkable, it would be an F for me. It's not good enough to warrant being uninkable, but at inkable, I can ink it if I've got it in the early game, and if I've got it in mid to late game, and I see a good opportunity, it could be very, very impactful. So as a result, I've got this at, where do I have this? Stop Chaos and Strikes at C. Yeah, I think I'm happy with it around there, which is to say, quite frankly, it's probably in this territory. Yeah, probably below Calhoun, but above Abu. Somewhere in that range I'm happy with. Alright, Honest John. 6 cost, Inkable, 7/5, 2 lore. So, this is better on rate than the 5 cost, 7/4, 1 lore. But it's still, like, the problem I have with 7 strength is there's so few times where it actually matters. Yes, if you're looking at these 6 plus drops, then sure. There's times where 7 strength does matter, right? But it's so infrequent. In most games, there's one character that I care about that the 7 strength would do something for. And even then, probably not all that meaningful. The fact that I gotta pay 6 for this, it's not nearly as impactful as a lot of these other 6 drops. My 6 drop slot is precious, right? It's gotta be a really good card for me to want to include it in there. And this just isn't it. It's fine, but it's not very good at all. So I would put it as a C-, D+, in that range there. Okay. Mushu. Oh, your worst nightmare. 6 cost, Inkable, 4/6, 2 lore, shift 4. Whenever you play another character, they gain Rush, Reckless, and Evasive this turn. So every one of your characters is now going to be quasi-removal, because Rush is very much quasi-removal. Now, keep in mind, they gain this upon entering. So this is not going to trigger Jiminy Cricket on the other side. My judges out there, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I may be wrong, but when you play it, that sounds like on play, which would be gain it after the fact. So get in the comments. Feel free to tell me if I'm wrong. Happy to be wrong, but I'm relatively confident that this would not trigger Jiminy Cricket. Not that that's all that relevant. He's a rare, but for what it's worth. So all your characters become quasi-removal, and for evasive too. That's huge. The body is not far off rate. It is 1 ink more than kind of the vanilla stat line, and you get a heck of a lot of value for that. So this is an A, maybe even A. Do I have it above Maui? Maui can do a lot of damage on his own. Mushu needs someone else to be impactful. I think I'll put it below Maui, but like they're both very, very good. Hopefully you're never in a position where you have to choose between those two. That will make you sad. Alright, Nothing We Won't Do. 8 cost Inkables, Sing Together, Action Song. Ready all your characters for the rest of this turn. They take no damage from challenges and can't quest. So basically you sing with everyone, then you ready them, and then you challenge with them. I think I like this more than the Force Duel, because I don't have to pay ink for it, and yeah, I don't get the Challenger +2 in the bounce, but then I don't have to replay my characters, because when they bounce my characters, yeah, it's like I'm drawing them, but then I gotta pay ink for them all over again. I'd rather they just stay healthy on the board. So I think I like this more than Force Duel, because the Challenger +2 is probably not significant. It's not nothing. Challenger +2 is not nothing, don't get me wrong. But I don't think it's significant enough that I probably don't like this more than Forest Duel. Yeah, I think I've got this as like a B-, C+ in that territory. I think for the fact that it's inkable. If it was uninkable, again, I might even have this as an F. It's like, it's circumstantial, right? But I think circumstantially, it's going to be very, very powerful. So when it works, it's going to be like an A+. And when it's mid, it's going to be like a C to C-. So as a result, we're kind of in the C+, B- territory again. And I might be overshooting this a bit, but I'm going to put it at B-. Yeah, I think more often than not, you're going to get more value out of that than these two, just because they're uninkable, right? Just because there's times where they're going to be stuck in your hand. Whereas if this is stuck in my hand, I can ink it. And then don't sweat it, move on. Oh, this one's gonna hurt. Get out! 6 cost, uninkable, banish chosen character, then return an item card from your discard to your hand. The last part is irrelevant. The first part is very, very relevant. We haven't had a banish chosen character outright for under 7 ink since the first chapter. But this compared to Dragonfire, I know it's just one more, but that's a world of difference on an... Excuse me, on an uninkable. That was gross. On an uninkable. That's a world of difference. Oh. Are we so desperate for removal that this is what we've fallen to? Maybe. I've got it at C just because I think there's going to be so many times where you need to play this and you're stuck on 5. Or you've got other cards that you want to be playing right now, but you got to ink them because you got to get to 6. Otherwise, this is going to be stuck in your hand. And then you fall behind on board, and then by the time you play this, you're too far behind, and. Oh. Just reprint Dragonfire for me. Let me give it an A-, B+, and be out of your hair, Ravensburger. Why you gotta do this to me? I think I gotta put it over a 7-drop, even if it's inkable. But I don't think I can put it above these two, because you're gonna get them out so much more consistently. Controversial pick! Most everyone's mad here. 7 cost uninkable, gain lore equal to the damage on chosen character, then banish them. Yeah, great value if you could get it out, but you're not going to get it out. I was already debating whether I could play my 6 cost uninkable. I'm not going to be able to play that. I would even value that less than Hades. Because it's still just one character, and maybe they don't even have any damage on. Ratagan, a greedy genius, 8 cost inkable, 6/7/4 lore with ward at the end of your turn. If you didn't put any card into your inkwell this turn, banish this character. So, really bad top deck if you happen to get to 8 ink, which you're never getting to. So you're never getting to 8 ink. If you do, and you top deck this, you're like, well, I gotta wait until I draw another inkable card to ink to 9 to play this, and then I've got to keep inking, or it goes away. It's like a worse Arthur. Because you've got to keep inking at this point, which means you're effectively not drawing a card. And it's versus Arthur, that's a 4 cost 6/6/3 lore. This is only an 8 cost 6/7/4 lore. So yeah, this is like a worse Arthur. Much worse, much worse. I can't stress this enough. The fact that it's 8 cost and you're never going to get it out. But even when you do get it out, is what I'm saying. It's almost a worse Arthur. D+ if you can set up a situation where you ink it, you're at 7, and then you ink and play this, and then just keep inking and hope that the 7 willpower 4 lore is enough to get you to the end of the game. I don't know. Probably not. I probably want Monstro better at 8 cost inkable. Yeah, you're like here. I should probably put him at F, just because he's a trap. But at least you can ink him. So you're going to try and make him work, you're going to realize you can't, and you're going to ink him. Aladdin, Vigilant Guard, 6 cost, inkable, 1/9, 1 lore, Bodyguard. Whenever one of your ally characters quests, you may remove up to 2 damage from this character. Fact of the matter is, your opponent's probably not going to let Aladdin live to activate that ability, but he's still a 9 willpower Bodyguard, so it's still going to take a lot to run into him. Here's the thing. Compare this to my 4 cost 0/8 mini that keeps getting higher strength as it's challenged. She's going to distract more and deal more damage than Aladdin does for 2 ink less. Because again, you're almost never going to have that second ability trigger. Your opponent's hopefully going to be smart enough to not let you get away with that. Maybe once in a while they're in a situation where they have to, but like who's going to challenge part way into a Bodyguard that's going to then heal itself? Like, no. They're going to wait till they can challenge it all the way. So maybe they run a risk one time. They run a gambit that like, oh, they're hoping that you don't, well, it's ally character quest. Sorry, I was thinking it was play for a moment. So they're going to know if you can quest. So yeah, I guess they'll run into it halfway if they know you don't have an ally that can quest. But like, regardless, the fact of the matter is I rate Mini so much higher than this. But it's still a 9 willpower Bodyguard, so it is still usable. Where would I have Aladdin at? I've got him as... I would definitely take Calhoun over Aladdin. Yeah, I think just right around there. I'm happy with. Somewhere in that range. You could probably bump him down a couple spots. Heads held high. 6 cost Inkable. Sing together 6. Remove up to 3 damage from any number of chosen characters. All opposing characters gets -3 strength this turn. The problem with the -3 strength this turn is you've got to sing out this 6 cost Sing together. So you're probably singing with 2/3, 3/4 of your available characters for challenging anyway. So the -3 strength probably isn't going to matter. Maybe on one character. If it was till the start of your next turn, great. But it's not. So it's really the remove 3. And we had a 2 cost Inkable action or song that removed 2 damage from all of your characters. Now it's from any number of chosen characters. So funny enough, you can remove damage from your characters and banish a vanished character if there happens to be one on the other side. But there's not going to be. Not likely anyways. So this is like a D+ for me. Maybe once in a while it'll be useful. But I'll probably even put it below these two. I think they're going to be more usable than that one is. Alright. Down in New Orleans, I'm just going to tell you this is an F. 6 cost uninkable song, so it's not sing together. You need a 6 cost or more character. Look at the top 3 cards. You can put a character cost 6 or less into play for free. Why have this card? Then just have a 6 cost character. It's an F. And I'm going to say that's like just above Mr. Trappy Trap. Mr. It's actually actively fighting against me, Cusco. Atataya, 7 cost Inkable, 7... Did they ever even say her name in the movie? 7 cost Inkable, 7/7/3 lore. Beefy body, but like at that point I don't care about beefy bodies. I want it to do something other than just be present. Speaking of doing something, Vincenzo Santorini, 7 cost Inkable, 2/8/3 lore. When you play this character, you may deal 3 damage to chosen character. That is a solid amount of damage. I mean, it's not going to take out everything, but it's going to take out a decent amount of characters, and you're left with a 2/8/3 lore. Now, it is a 7 cost Inkable, so again, we are being ambitious here, but I think in terms of our ambitious characters, it is the top of them. So I would put this as above Fred. Right, below our 6-drop Inkables, but above any of our 7-drops, that's for sure. Alright, I think I had that quite a bit higher, but yeah, I had it at B+, but I'm like, let's be real, you're not getting out a 7-drop. Be realistic, Heath. Speaking of not getting out, Mickey Mouse is a 10 cost uninkable. He is the hardest of Fs that you will ever find anywhere at any point in time. Beyond the Horizon, 7 cost Inkable, sing together... Uninkable, sorry, that's really relevant. Sing together 7, choose any number of players, they discard their hand, and draw 3 cards each. So, I like this better than Desperate Plan. Because I get the choice to discard my hand or not. And chances are at that point, I'm going to want to discard my hand. So I know all you Desperate Plan lovers out there, but I actually like this better than Desperate Plan. Because also, if I happen to be able to get this out early, then maybe I want to use this on my opponent. Let's be frank, by the time you can sing this, chances are your opponent's got 1 card or no cards in hand, so you're never going to want to sing it on them, or use it on them. But there's not no possibility, so give that like a 1/10 of a point for the opportunity to use it on your opponent, but really consider it to be sing together 7, draw 3, right? Discard your hand, draw 3. But again, by the time you're singing it together, you're probably drawing 3. How many card draw did I anticipate you were going to get from Fantastical and Magical, and it means no worries? 3, right? So yes, this is when you have to discard your hand, but obviously you wait to play it last. So, much like Desperate Plan, it's still a 7 cost Inkable stuck in your hand. But again, the reason why I didn't like Desperate Plan is because you didn't have a choice. You had to have no cards in hand. This, I could have one, if I was greedy and had my Hades 7 cost Uninkable in my hand, you know what? I'm not going to wait for that to get out of my hand. I'm going to discard it and draw 3 fresh cards that are actually going to be usable, right? So this is 2 costs less for the Sing Together, and is probably going to draw me an equivalent amount of cards as Fantastical and Magical, and it means no worries. So for me, this is C plus B minus territory, and considering how many C's we got, I think I'm ready to put it in B minus. Alright, that's it. That's the lot. Do we want to tidy anything up here? I think I'm pretty happy. I'm definitely happy with my D's and F's. That's for sure. And in fact, I'd maybe even put Honest John into that D plus territory. You know what? I'm happy to put him in the D plus territory. Do I want to move anything up? Do I want to move Tramp up? No, I don't think so, because I think you shouldn't be taking many 6-drops. So I think, you know, having 2 at A feels right. But I mean, still very, very good. Let's not mince words here. All right, that's everything. We're gonna leave it at that. And tomorrow, for your morning viewing before your Friday pre-release event, I will come at you with a summary recap of all of these videos, so that you can know the top hits at each ink point, so you can build out your curve with the perfect deck. Thank you all for checking these out. Thank you so much for their support. If you haven't already, drop a sub. I do these every set. But more importantly, hopefully you're all already subbed. Tell your friends. I can't stress this enough. It feels very awkward for me to be asking for subs, asking for likes and all that. But really, I just want to drive Limited. I want to make sure more people are aware of it, feeling good about it, enjoying it. And so if it means I gotta do the old like, comment, and subscribe type thing, then so be it. So here I am. Just a boy asking you to like, comment, and subscribe. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow, and then hope you all have fun. Let me know how your pre-release events go. I always love the good stories. Take care. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.